What's up everybody, and thank you for joining me for another video. My name is Whack4863, but you can call me Whack. So I guess it's about time that I go through my build, and I'm going to tell you guys some mistakes that I made with my build as well that really hindered me from being able to go and successfully defeat Uber Lilith on a regular basis. I was able to defeat her with the build that I made a mistake on, but it took a lot of tries and a lot of time. I've then gone back and changed some of my build, and I'm going to show you that in this video, but that mistake made it so that I couldn't consistently proc the damage that I needed for defeating Uber Lilith. So let's jump right into the build. We're going to run over the equipment that I have first. Obviously, Death's Visage is really good for Bone Spear Necromancer, and even though the last aspect on there doesn't matter that much, I do find that it is helpful if you kind of miss a Bone Spear. If your aim isn't that great, you can still clean up enemies that maybe just took a little bit of damage. So it's a nice helmet for this build. I definitely recommend this helmet, and I use the same gear now except for the necklace and one ring for just running around and doing dungeons or any content. The ring and the amulet are what I switch out for the Uber Lilith fight. For the chest piece, you can see not all that great. I do have the control impaired duration reduction on there because there isn't a whole lot for necromancers to get out of that control, and I do have blood mist as well so that I can get out of that as well. But you could pretty much look for anything you want on your chest plate, whether you want to do more damage reductions or what you want to do here. This is just what I did. Obviously that is imprinted with the aspect where you get a barrier when damaging an elite, because there's really no other options that I feel like are as good for that particular thing. For the gloves, what you're looking for is the additional Bone Spear ranks. I have 4 on this, which is perfect, and lucky hit chance to restore 19.5 primary resource. You can see I have critical strike chance on there as well, and then critical strike chance against injured enemies. This is a really good setup for your gloves. You could look at just critical strike damage overall instead of injured enemies, but these gloves came out really well. Now here's the first mistake that I had the grasping veins aspect on these instead of the ossified essence. You can see this isn't a perfect roll, but even with this roll I was able to defeat Uber Lilith. I had this aspect on my amulet, which gave it a much higher damage, but it was based on primary resource, so I was actually losing out on damage for that fight, and I'll explain that a little bit later on in the video. But if you're wanting to go after Uber Lilith and you don't want to be switching a ton of gear to do that, I definitely recommend putting the ossified essence key on your gloves. For the pants, we have some damage reduction, some intelligence, and then we also have the ranks to corpse explosion. Now I don't have any points in corpse explosion at all, so I'm able to free up those points to put somewhere else with this set of pants. So I really like this set of pants with the corpse explosion on there. For the aspect here, you gain 0.50% increase for 4 seconds up to 50%. I don't feel like this is great because I kill things so fast that you're not going to see that really stack up. That really is for a build that you're doing a lot less damage than this, but there really isn't another aspect that's really good to go on this. I do sometimes switch this out for Temetry, and I run a little bit different build where I have a consistent barrier, but I'll save that for another video. For this video, that's a good roll on a set of pants. Then for the boots, I have ranks to corpse tendrils and essence cost reduction. Those are probably the most important things for going and fighting Uber Lilith. Something that was very important for me was the movement speed. Without the movement speed, I wouldn't even look at these boots. I would just move on and look for boots that have movement speed. For me, that's very important because the Necro is ridiculously slow, and I can't stand running around with a Necro without movement speed. We have a very good two-handed weapon here. You're going to want to choose the one with the highest item power. And then the affixes that you're looking for on this are going to be critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, intelligence, and critical strike damage with bone skills, or you could do a different critical strike damage on there. But this allows me to just put out an absolute ton of damage. Obviously, you can see we have the Bone Spear's primary attack. Enemies hit beyond the first are vulnerable for 5 seconds, and the bone splinters, bone shards from the bone spear, deal 225% additional damage to vulnerable enemies. For the amulet, this is the one that I run when I'm just running dungeons or the content on the map. And the reason being is this one has an additional 22.5% move speed, and move speed when killing an elite. Now, it's very good if you can get ranks in Evulsive passive on this amulet as well. That's definitely what you're going to want on your amulet if you're going after Uber Lilith. But the move speed on this allows me to just run through dungeons and run through content very fast. I rarely use my horse at this point because I'm almost as fast as a horse when it's not charging or when it's not galloping. So this makes a lot of sense for me for farming the world and farming dungeons because I can get through them so much quicker. For the imprint here, it's Grasping Veins. Obviously, you gain 15 to 30% increased critical strike chance for 6 seconds, and then you deal 45 to 90% bonus critical strike damage. Now, this is very important when you're going up against Uber Lilith that you have this aspect here, because you are going to use that additional critical strike damage against her with the corpse tendrils to just melt her hit points. Now, the reason why I had these switched originally was because I wasn't using corpse tendrils as much as I felt like I was using the ossified essence. Ossified essence I was using just anytime I had a lot of essence, and the corpse tendrils I was only using when I was casting corpse tendrils. But now that I've switched that, I can kill Uber Lilith a lot more consistently because I am getting that 86% additional critical strike damage guaranteed versus the aspect where it depends on how much essence you actually have. So this is more consistent for killing Uber Lilith, and if you're putting together gear to do that, you may end up in a scenario like I was, where I really only had to switch out 1 or 2 pieces unless I had the wrong imprint on another set. Like I had the wrong imprint on my gloves, which means I had to change 3 different aspects in order to get a build where I could just swap between a couple of items to go and kill Uber Lilith. Then for the ring, what you're looking for is something like this: critical strike chance, vulnerable damage, a critical strike with bone skills, or just critical strike damage. And then you definitely want either essence regeneration or you want maximum essence. Either one of those is going to be fine. I find that when I'm out in the world and I'm fighting things, essence regeneration or resource regeneration just works. You can look for max essence if you want, but I run 2 rings with resource generation on them. And for this one, you can see we have up to a 10% chance to generate 42 essence when hitting a vulnerable enemy with bone skills. You're going to be hitting vulnerable enemies with bone skills all the time, so you're going to see that essence just kind of regenerating all the time. Again, on the second ring here, I have resource generation, critical strike chance, and then just critical strike damage. There's also some max health on this one. I don't know whether the max health really helps me or not, because as I push those higher level dungeons, I'm still one shot in very high level dungeons, so I'm not sure it makes much of a difference. And then on this one, I have skills deal up to 20% increased damage based on primary resource when cast. If we jump over to the Book of the Dead, we are sacrificing our skirmishers for the 5% increased chance. We are sacrificing Shadow for the increased essence. We are sacrificing Iron for the critical strike damage. One of the things I don't see a lot of content creators doing is showing their actual stats. So I'm just going to scroll through these so that you can take a look at what my actual stats are. Like you can see, I have 409% increased critical strike damage, plus the 185% increased critical strike damage with bone, and 97% increased critical strike damage with core. So all of those things add together to be a huge amount of critical strike damage. Scrolling back down through here, you can see the other stats that I have going on here. You can see the damage with bone is at 55%, max health, potion capacity, all of that's in here. But I feel like this is very important so that you can compare the gear that you're using versus the gear that I'm using and see how that stacks up. You can see that my essence generation is at 32.1% and my essence cost reduction is at 10.3%. Those are very important things to look at, because if you're having issues with essence, it's likely in this area that you need to focus your attention with your affixes to be able to keep your essence generation going. You can see that I also have the 19.5% chance to lucky hit for essence. Let's run through the abilities real quick. So for bone splinters, I just have a point there, and then in enhance bone splinters, we have the imperfectly balanced at 3, unliving energy at 3, and then hewed flesh at 3. We have a total of 9 in Bone Spear. As high as you can get this number, I recommend doing that because that's where your main damage is going to come from. We have the Enhanced Bone Spear and then the Paranormal Bone Spear. We don't need the Supernatural Bone Spear because the aspect that we have on our two-handed sword is actually giving us the same benefit as this would. We have Blood Mist just to get out of hairy situations should we need to. And then in Corpse Explosion, I actually don't have any points in this particular item because it's all coming from the one piece of gear. We have 3 in Grim Harvest and 3 in Fueled by Death. We then have Death's Embrace, and we have 3 in that. We also have 3 in Death's Reach, and we have a total of 9 in Corpse Tendrils. Now, the reason why it's important to put extra points into Corpse Tendrils is because you want to bring your cooldown reduction down. So you can see my cooldown reduction is just under 8 seconds with the 9 points that I have there. Then we have Enhanced Corpse Tendrils and then the Plagued Corpse Tendrils. You could swap between these depending on your situation. If you want to do something where you're fortifying with blood orbs, you could do the Blighted Corpse Tendrils and have a lot of blood orbs drop. Moving down, we have Serration at 3, we have Compound Fracture at 3, and we have 6 into the Evulsion. This gives us a lot of extra damage. Now, I've seen people say to look for Compound Fracture. The issue with Compound Fracture instead of Evulsion is this is only every 10 times, where this one is going to give you that damage more consistently and all the time. We then have Standalone with just 1 point in it and 3 points into Memento Mori for the 60% additional sacrifice bonus. Over here we have Inspiring Leader, and that is just to gain the attack speed. We have Bone Storm and obviously the 2 that come after that. And the last point here is going into Ossified Essence for that additional 1% increased damage for every point of essence we have above 50. For the Paragon board, I'm just going to show you real quick what is set up here. However, this is not my original making. This is the making of Nick 2. He's on YouTube as well. So you can get over to the video that I'll link in the description of this video. And he has this board over on a website that you can go and check out. But that is this board. So it's not going to be any different than the board that he's currently running. And it is the board for killing Uber Lilith. So in the first slot here, we have Sacrificial. We then go up and we grab the Bone Graft board and we grab everything that's important on there. In this slot, we're going to put Exploit. We'll go over to the right here. You can see this is the Bloodbath board, and in this spot we have Essence. Moving to the left, this is the board for Scent of Death, and in this glyph spot we have Imbiber. Moving down to the bottom, the last board that we have is Flesh Eater, and this glyph spot has Gravekeeper. Again, if you want an in-depth look at this board, click the link in the description for Nick 2's video, and he has the board posted already on a website in the description of his video. The last thing here that I want to go over are the changes that I make to my build for defeating Uber Lilith. This is the amulet that I wear for defeating Uber Lilith. It has more essence cost reduction, so I'm able to keep that essence up. It has damage reduction to distance. You could do distant or close in this. It really doesn't matter. But the 3 ranks in Evulsion is very important. And the Grasping Veins aspect, also very important. Now, the reason why I run this just for Uber Lilith and not this one is because I don't need the move speed while I'm going up against Uber Lilith. The other thing that I switch out is my ring here. Again, this one has max essence instead of essence regeneration, but that's okay. We have vulnerable damage, we have physical damage, we have critical strike chance. And at the bottom there, you can see that's imprinted for standing still. So up to 10% more damage when you're standing still. And if you're doing the Uber Lilith fight, you're going to be standing still a lot. Whereas when I'm running a dungeon, this would be totally worthless because I rarely stand still when I'm running through a dungeon. So that's why I switch out these 2 pieces. 1, because I don't need the movement speed, and 2, because I'm standing still during that fight. The last thing that I'm going to mention here is if you're going to face Uber Lilith, you want the Elixir of Resourcefulness. Increase your maximum resource by 50 and you gain extra experience. But that 50 is what is going to help you with this ossified essence key. So right now I have 180 total essence. When I use this potion, it goes up to 230 and it gives me more of a buffer for that 50 essence that I need in order to make this passive really work well. Now, if you're having issues with the Uber Lilith fight, you can actually use an incense like Chaos of War, which increases all your stats by 40, and your crit and overpower damage are increased by 5%. The one caveat with this particular thing is that incense will not carry with you if you die, unlike the potions. So this can become very expensive very quickly if you're trying to defeat her and you don't have the perfect setup. However, this will help you put a lot more damage to her, as well as help you crit more often and have higher essence regeneration and more damage reduction because it's increasing each one of these stats by 40. And that's pretty much it. That's my speedy Necro build and my Uber Lilith build. If you guys have any questions about the build, please let me know in the comment section below. I'd like to thank all my YouTube members for your continued support. Y'all are absolute legends. If you'd like to become a legend, there's a button that says join on this page. Click that for details. There's 2 videos on the screen. Click one of those to watch next, and I'll meet you over there.